Hi, everyone. Kathy Ligon here from Hinge Advisors. I'm so glad you're joining us. I am streaming from my hotel room in Houston today, on the road a little bit. Always exciting to be out and to be seeing and meeting people and learning more that I can share with you guys. So this is the funnest webinar and content that I develop every year. I have a real passion for what is happening in the industry and different unique perspectives on it, what we expect to happen in the future, what behaviors we're seeing, both operationally and transactionally, and then to share it with you guys. And hopefully that helps you make better decisions about your own company and the direction to take it. So I am going to jump right into the content. You guys feel free to, as we go, make comments in the chat, send me questions in the Q&A area, and I will leave at least 10, if not a couple more minutes at the end so we can take some of those questions. I think there are a lot of very pivotal things happening in our industry right now, and I want to be sure that I'm addressing the things that are important to you guys. And if there are other things, let's either share them with everyone here or let's throw the questions out and then circle back later for some answers. So we're excited to have you guys with us today and excited to be in 2023 with you. It has started out to be a very busy year for the team at Hinge. We typically get a good bit of transaction activity in the month of January for a couple of reasons. Everyone started their new goals for the year, so they have space for acquisition. They're thinking about their growth for the year. They're gathering their 2022 financial data to see what their company's worth. They're considering either partnering with someone to grow their company. They're considering selling their business or their real estate or both. So there are a lot of things and a lot of energy that happen in the new year. There are a couple of things that concern me a bit, and I want to talk about those today too. So excited to have you guys here. I want to tell you about a couple of announcements and opportunities from the Hinge team. I want to share some trends in operations, share some trends in transactions, and then share what we see and hear from others about their plans for 2023 and what other companies are thinking about this year. So first of all, new team members for the Hinge team. We have about 20 team members now, really excited for some of the services that we're bringing to the industry late last year and early this year. So as you guys probably know, the core of the Hinge work is to help with transactions when companies choose to grow, when they choose to bring in a growth or equity partner, when they choose to sell, and that's at the core of everything that we do. What we do also is support the financial health of the industry. So we're very passionate about how well you guys are doing and whether you're appropriately taking care of yourself and the long-term viability of our industry. I was crafting a blog for you guys this morning called The Upside Down of Tuition Rates and Salaries. I have some concerns around that, and I'll share them there and share them here as well. So look for that in our newsletter that'll be out the 1st of February. New team members here, Nan Reichert, a long-term person in the industry, founder of Big Blue Marble, has joined us after we sold Big Blue Marble for her 4 years ago. She stayed with a new investor, and now she has joined the Hinge team as the lead of our swim school division. So if you don't know what swim school is, it's an emerging trend in early education along the obviously swim concepts. And the Hinge team is going to put some energy into the increasing interest and demand around swim school. So Nan will head that for us, and super excited to be working with Nan. Again, we worked together for about 25 years, and she's one of my favorite people. Also super excited to have Alita Mettel on our team. Alita was also a childcare owner whose company we sold last year, also to a national group that's private equity backed. Alita is an excellent trainer. She's got a lot of knowledge and wonderful resources to bring the industry. And we launched mastermind groups this month. We're full for our first 6 months, and we're doing 5-10 people groups to share ideas, to troubleshoot, brainstorm issues. And if you're interested in the second half of the year, reach out to us and we'll get you on that wait list for July through December. Tom Wood is heading what we refer to as our success services, which is all of the support that we provide to the industry. And Tom has launched a new concept called leadership sprints. We found Tom and his skills when he did a leadership sprint class for our team last year in January, and it was so impactful. So it just really brought the team together and gave us some great feedback in a fast, easy format that was very powerful. We're still quoting some of the things he said to us. So we launched that. We had space for 10 companies to do sprints for their team members. We actually took 11. We're full in that until April, but let us know if that's of interest to you or you'd like to have more information. So I feel very blessed to have these 3 people join our team this year to offer some things for you guys to strengthen your business and strengthen your teams. Critical right now. We, as we look at the overview of success services, I thought I would just give you a overview of everything that was there. We also are doing some QuickBooks specific to childcare QuickBooks training. We have some new resources on our team, also from some seller resources that are doing a great job with that. They're also performing QuickBooks cleanup and financial coaching for clients. I mentioned the mastermind groups, the leadership sprints, and our framework app that we launched this time last year. So a little bit more about that in just a minute. I told you guys about swim schools. We have joined the U.S. Swim School Association and done some webinars there and learned more about the industry, and are attending their annual conference in San Diego in a few weeks. So excited there. We are reinstating, if you're familiar with our one-day Thrive financial deep dive, we're putting that back in gear this year. We did it every year in person until COVID, and then we did it in a web-based online format, but we miss you guys. It's just not the same if we're not in person. So we're launching one day with a financial analysis of your company in May in Chicago. Very cool venue. We limit to 100 people. We launch registration on February 10th. What happens there is that we collect financial data from you guys ahead. We load it into our framework app, which analyzes your company in light of the 5 key indicators of financial health, which are occupancy, tuition rates, discounts, salaries, and rent. And if you get those things right, you're 95% of the way there. So the app will tell you how you measure. It will give you ideas about how to strengthen those areas of your company. And we're going to load that data for you into the app and give you free use of it for 3 months. You can play what if games. What if I increase my tuition rates this much? What if I eliminate this discount? What if I grow? So it's a powerful tool that's 25 years in the making for us, and we're excited about that. So look for that Thrive workshop, and we would love to see you guys there. I was really excited to be asked again to write the annual State of the Industry article for Child Care Information magazine, which was released this month. A lot of the information that I'm going to share today came from the research that we did and the database that we put together of the nation's 50 largest companies and their behavior and their expectations for the coming year. So there's a link in our blog, I think, for you to access the article if you're not a magazine subscriber. So look for that. I'll get Marissa to put in the notes how you guys can get that, because I know she's posted it, and you can get it that way if you're not a subscriber. But great magazine. This are our friends Roberto and Candy Ortega here on the cover, and we were super excited to see them there too. So check that out. Really good information about the struggles that larger companies are having, and spoiler alert, the same as you, and what their plans are in 2023. So take a look at that. So let me jump into this. So here is what we hear from providers in the industry about what's going on with them. So I always like to start by saying I share this information not because we're smarter than anyone else. It's just that all day long, all 20 people on our team are talking. What are you doing? What are you concerned about? How are you solving that? What are the best ways to do it? Where are you going? How are you growing? What are the challenges? And then we gather that information and we use it to help you do business better. And one of the ways that we use it is just to share it with you guys. So I'm going to share a compilation of what we think is happening as we head into 2023, and also some trends that we saw at the end of 2022. So first of all, on the top 50 list, if you guys get this, it's just great to know what's happening in the largest companies in the US, because that top 50 list, if you haven't seen it, it's very fragmented, meaning you go all the way from the number one company in size, which is KinderCare, quickly down to a company that has 6 schools. I'll say that it's self-reported, so we know there are companies that are not on it, but I think it's pretty well represented. That group of companies controls a large part of the market. And also, I like to say a lot, I know that in a lot of cases, they're your competitors. And one of the things you're thinking as I tell you what they're doing is, well, I wish they would just go out of business because they're competing with me. What I will say about that is that their value drives your value. And what I mean by that is when they get investors in their company, they go public, they trade from one equity group to another equity group, the value that they get then determines the value that everyone in the industry gets. And I can explain that better, but I need more time than we have in this webinar. So maybe that'll come in Thrive or a future webinar. But on the top 50 list from 22 to 23, and we date it January, 4 of the groups sold to other groups on that list. Those 4 groups represented 92 schools and 26,000 plus capacity. So what we're seeing is a continued trend for that group to consolidate. So larger companies are buying, smaller companies too, but also larger companies in that top 50 group. So that's a trend that has continued. Of those top 50 companies, they grew. And to be honest, you see me saying here that they grew at 7.16%. It was actually closer to 8. I had a couple of companies report in a bit after that article was published. So about 7.75% to 8% growth in calendar year 2022, with a combination of acquisition of existing schools and development of new schools. Really big push for development of new schools. You'll hear me talk about minute and future plans. most report that they're at full pre-COVID recovery, unless hiring is a problem, which is true for most everyone. So big wait lists, especially in younger age groups. And if they could enroll their wait list, almost everyone would be not just fully recovered, but stronger than they were. So we sort of used 2019 as a benchmark for pre-COVID. 2019 was a record year for most people. It was very strong. And of course, 2020 was a crapshoot for everyone. We started to see the rebuild in 21, and by 22, most everyone was fully recovered. Again, there are bigger than ever wait lists. They're being held down artificially. I say artificially because you could enroll if you had teachers. So one little train wreck I see coming is that we are, in a lot of cases, propping up our salaries based on the continuation or the current experience of grants that will expire 12, 18 months from now. And then what? So this is something that we need to be on the lookout for. Larger than average tuition rate increases with very little pushback. So if COVID did any favors to you, it's that they educated the world. So I'm now a 37-year veteran of the industry, and they educated the world about just how vital you guys are. Not just how vital you are, but how sophisticated you are, how you navigated early days of COVID when everyone else just went home, and you figured it out to serve the people who needed to be at work. The world has learned that now. And I think that if I am ever happy about anything, I know how good you were before. We've increased in sophistication continually since I've been in this industry. But I think the world largely knows it now. And so what we're seeing is larger than average tuition rate increases with very little pushback from parents. So historically, we would do annual tuition rate increases at about 5 to 8%. I'm sorry, about 3 to 5% of increase on tuition rates annually. That's what very financially healthy companies would do. And that's assuming they were already at a market rate. And what do I mean by market rate? Not what the rest of your market is doing. Should you pay attention to competition? Only if they're true competition. If they just operate in your market, does not make them true competition. How are they serving customers? Are they delivering the same quality? Are they in the same type of facility? Really important questions when you determine who is competition. But at the same time, it's much more important to know the cost of what you're delivering. And one of the things I love to use the framework program for is to determine your base level of care. So how much is it costing you to deliver this care? Then you have to think about capital improvement add-ons, because it's not just care delivery. You're going to need a new playground at some point. The HVAC unit's going to go out. You're going to replace buses. You're going to have to reinvest in your business. Also, maybe you want to grow and serve more children. There are children everywhere that cannot get into care. I have an employee who had a baby in October, and minimum it'll be June before she can even think about coming back and having care. So really big problem in our country. But for us to be sure that we're charging what it costs to deliver this service is more critical than ever. I've been preachy about this for my whole 38 years, and we could squeak by before, but escalating salaries, which they were escalating before COVID, but now just off the chart if you can even find people. So the more important things from people are culture building, retention strategies, and career paths. So the soft benefits of working for your company. I've said forever, we're never going to pay these people enough to do the job that they do. I'm saying it now. I said it 35 years ago. So that hasn't changed. It's just reached a whole new peak. So even if you could find the right people, you can't pay them what they're worth. So to balance your tuition rates and your salaries is more critical than ever. And it's one of the reasons we built the framework program. And also for you to analyze what the effects would be if you eliminated some discounts. So I get preachy about that too. But the industry largely moved away from most discounting before COVID. The one you don't need to get rid of is staff discounts, but also there's some benchmarks around that. And if that's a question for you, throw it in. If we have time, I'll tell you a couple of trends there. But discounting and tuition rates are more important than ever. We're hearing 8 to 12% tuition rate increases and more than once a year. Yeah. So with very little pushback. I mean, it's not that people don't lose families. And look, I sound insensitive when I say this. I know I do. I know I do. I'm the parent of parents of children in childcare. I know how hard it is, but they have so many advocates and you don't. I'm it. I'm one of them. There are more, but I'm one of them and I'm a strong one. I want you to take care of yourself and your company. Who are we doing any favors to if we're out of business? So I will keep being pushy about that. I'll be even more pushy. So we're starting to see a trend in our financial model. So in the framework app, and there's a free version, you guys. Let me explain that real quickly. Go to frameworkbyhinge.com and access the free version. Put in your average tuition rate and your license capacity, and all the expenses will populate. That will say to you, here's what the average company will spend in each expense category, given my tuition rate structure and my license capacity. So we've given that away for free for 25 years. We watch it constantly. The full-blown version costs $1,000 a year. That's just what it costs us. We aren't trying to make money off of you guys. If you can't afford it and you really need it, please call me. I'll figure out a way to help you. We're about to do some upgrades in the future. It might cost a little bit more, but we're just trying to support you guys with good information. In those 25 years, I've changed very little about the model, and we temper it with the financial statements that we see all year long. We're privy to a lot of financial statements, the national groups, the super regionals, the smaller regionals, the multi-sites, the single sites in rural markets and urban markets. And we don't share those, of course, they're confidential, but we're watching for trends. And very little has changed up until this point. Now, there's some big changes right now, but I'm hesitant yet to change the model. I have to see changes normalize over a bit of time. But one of the things we're seeing is a shifting, and this makes sense, of marketing dollars away from drawing parents in. Again, most everyone has larger than usual wait list, and toward getting staff in, which is completely logical. So that's a change we're seeing. We're having reported increased developmental and behavioral delays in children. So let's put this together. We're having trouble hiring. Our teachers are stressed. Now we're going to combine that with children who are coming back from COVID with greater issues than they had before. It's a perfect storm. How are we going to support that? More training, more techniques, more support for teams, but teams are more stressed. So a lot of holding enrollments down relates to, do I have the teachers at all, or do I want to further stress teachers? I get all the issues. However, occupancy and how full you are is the #1 driver of your financial health. So we have to find ways. We have to find ways. We can't accept that we have challenges that we can't do anything about. We have to find ways to solve them. Continued grant funding. We still see ARPA money out for another 15 months, 18 months. Again, I'm nervous for people who are using that money to supplement salaries. I'm nervous if you're not also enacting strategies like tuition rate increases, eliminating discounts, and finding ways to support your staff so you can increase occupancy, because that money is going to go away. And you can't go backwards in what you pay people. So planning, aggressive planning and strategy is critical right now. We are seeing increased focus on culture building and career path development. I mentioned those things. We have some content on career path development. Reach out if that's of interest. Continued elimination of discounting. I'll add a few more thoughts on that. Pre-COVID, we saw the industry, well, actually 10 years ago-ish. I feel like I've missed a couple of, it's probably actually 12 or 13 years ago, because I feel like there were 2 years I just lost of my life during COVID. So everything's at least 2 or 3 years longer than I think it was. But 10 years ago-ish, the industry moved away from free or vacation days, days that parents don't pay for if they don't come. It makes no sense. We have to stop doing that. If you are still doing that, that's an easy first. And the reason it's a hidden danger is the majority of the industry will not charge the full. So in your system, your billing system, you should charge the full tuition, input the discount, so you see the net tuition and you have a record of what you're discounting by type of discount and age group. Because you can make different decisions in different age groups. It's more difficult to discount infants and toddlers than 3s and 4s, because you're at best breaking even in your infants and toddlers. Most people are losing money. So if you're doing that correctly, and also we force you to do that correctly in framework, so we show you by discount and age group how much you're losing by that discount. So that's an easy first. We have seen a lot of companies move away from discounting multiple children in the same family. We have also seen companies move away from discounting certain businesses or industries. Here's kind of my thought around that. If they are doing something for you, if they're marketing to their employees, they're cutting your grass, they're giving you supplies, great. And now's the time to ask for those relationships, because businesses are concerned about their employees' childcare. Great time to go to the businesses where a lot of your parents work and say, hey, we want to be here to support your people. What can you do? Maybe we can give your employees a 5% discount. Most people will give a 10% discount, but when I say to you guys that I think financial health starts at a 15% profit, it's hard to give away 10% of that. So be sure that you're getting value for that. If you aren't, those parents are coming to you anyway. So reconsider that. What not to get rid of is staff discounts. However, there is a trend to limit those somewhat. I'm going to tell you, be careful with limiting anything for staff. But let me just tell you what some of the trends are. They're limiting it to 2 children per team member. They're limiting it to 2 years old and over, so no discounting for infants and toddlers. And then industry norm would be free childcare for managers and half-price childcare for teachers. Again, you might have to be more liberal with this one. It's always been one of the main ways we've hired and attracted people. So that one might be difficult to go backwards on. I just offer you some of that information. Use of more sophisticated systems to operate. So during COVID, more people used to automatic billing, moved to it. It's less manpower, it's less touches, it's less labor intensive, more electronic communication with parents, with some of the fabulous systems are out there for that. So easier, more sophisticated ways to operate. And those are good ways to supplement problems with manpower. So that's what we see operationally. I'm sorry, I got a little bit more. Okay, so with the staff, I forgot I put this on a separate slide because it's too important not to. We're having competition from new sources. So our competition for staff isn't the childcare center down the street anymore, it's public schools. And I'm hearing stories about public schools lowering their standards for staff, which means now they're drawing more of the work pool that we used to draw from. Non-industry companies like distribution, it's easier, it's less mind intensive. You know, of course, in our world, you are on all the time. If you aren't, somebody gets hurt, things happen. But moving to a position where you don't have to, you can sit for 15 minutes and search on Amazon might be more appealing to people. So non-industry companies are a big competitor for our staff now. And then a real increasing move to people wanting to work from home. So big trend in COVID. I've worked from home for 25 years. If you told me I had to go back to an office, I would probably go nuts. And so I understand why people would want to do that, but obviously that's not an option in our industry. I will say that I've heard a few clients recently who are allowing some flexibility with their management teams. So somebody has to be there to manage, of course, so you can't let them fully work from home. But directors and assistant directors at times, and maybe you're big enough that you could have 2 assistant directors, are trading off so that managers can be at home 1 day a week. So maybe on Fridays they get to work from home and they work on things like newsletters and some staff work and their paperwork, whatever they're doing, whatever allows them to not be on site, then they can do from home 1 day a week. And that seems to be really supporting very stressed managers. So I'll offer up that thought to you guys, that stay-at-home jobs are hard to compete with. We won't do it fully, but if there are ways you can combine that, at least for stressed staff, then that might be a thing to consider. So I just, you know, one more thing to say. So you guys heard me say that I just wrote a blog on the upside down of tuition rates and staff salaries. What I mean by the upside down is that when we're an industry of slim margins, right? And when I say to you guys that I think your financial health starts when you can put 15% on the bottom line, because that gives you the cash flow to reinvest in your company, maybe grow, maybe do something new for your people. You can't break even. You got to take care of yourself. You can't be up in the middle of the night worried about the payroll and the rent. You are good for nobody. So if you aren't taking care of yourself, you're not taking care of anyone. And I'll be your advocate for that. But for years, we've done a careful balance of tuition rates and occupancy, so revenue, and what we're paying for staff. So we like a percentage if you're fully loaded with a manager and teachers and excuse me, the school is 70% occupied or better. We like a ratio of 45% salaries to revenue. Now, as you get more full, that can drop to 42. Some people can even manage it in the upper 30s. But that number in COVID went up to 60 and 70%. Also, when the industry norm for just facility cost is 22 to 25%, and there's another 5 to 7%, another staff cost, and another 10 to 15% in operating costs, you can see that I'm quickly getting to zero and negative numbers. So my guess is right now, without grants, that we're propping up salaries that are probably 50 to 55%. I have gotten asked a lot in the last year, are you going to adjust the model? And the answer is absolutely not. Adjusting the model, in my mind, would say we have just given up on solving this problem. I'm not saying it's not hard. I'm not saying we don't have a lot of work to do. I'm saying that we have to figure this out, because you making less money means something's getting sacrificed. Either your team's getting sacrificed, or the quality of the care is getting sacrificed, or more likely you personally are being sacrificed. And who are we good for if we're not there anymore? So we can't just say, oh, well, that's the new world. We have to find ways to either reduce the amount of staff costs, or more likely raise the revenue, so that what we're actually spending right now, because my guess is you're doing the best you can with that, there's nowhere to cut, so that percentage stays at a healthy percentage. So that's what I think we have to do. We're going to dedicate a lot of the Hinge resources this year to helping you solve that. We're going to find you as many ideas and resources as we can to solve the staffing, or alleviate, reduce a little bit the staffing problem. So I don't think we can adjust the model for that. Don't see it. Here's some, when we survey and we hear from our clients, here are the best hiring strategies. By far, Indeed is the place that our clients go to find staff. Now, for the third year in a row, we had Travis Steba from Indeed at our Shift conference. Travis is fantastic. Maybe I'll get him to do a webinar with me and share some information for you guys. But he has so much information about how to effectively use Indeed as a recruiting tool. And it's very surprising things. I'm going to get Marissa to write that down right now. I think we need to do that soon. The second thing is staff referral bonuses and parent referral bonuses. So consistently hearing that when our providers are going to their staff and they're going to their parents and saying, bring me good people and I will pay you X. And if they stay here this amount of time, I'll pay you a little bit more. Do it. It's so good success with that. It's always easier to hire someone that someone knows, or that through someone else, than just getting a resume and not knowing what is going to show up. Bigger focus on company culture. A lot of information coming to you guys on that. Obviously, increased wages. That's just a must do. I mean, we can't even get close to getting the same quality of people we got before, but we can't even get bodies without increased wages. Hiring and retention bonuses, a lot, there's some pros and cons to those. We'll be discussing those. Love to hear your experiences. Increased benefits for sure. We're hearing that a good bit. And then a bigger focus on retention. Let's keep the people. Usually a year is what we hear is kind of a breaking point. If you can keep somebody a year, if you find ways to help them make a friend at work, if they have at least one friend, and not a friend they brought in, make a friend at work, help people get to know each other, then the chances of success are much stronger. What's happening in transactions? So what do we see happening there? I've said this for 7 or 8 years now, but it happens every year. So I'm going to keep saying it as long as I see it. Increased private equity and international interest for assets in our industry in the U.S. We closed in December 2 multi-site transactions to international buyers. We are increasingly seeing additions in the private equity community to our buyer database, which is over 550 groups now that either are in the industry and would like to grow, or aren't in it yet and would like to invest. So increased interest. We did see, so I almost hesitated to put number 3 bullet in here because I only saw it once at the end of 2022. And I don't really like to say something's a trend until I see it happen multiple times. But we did have a large transaction go under contract And a couple of investors dropped out because of increasing interest rates. However, we got a phenomenal price for it. So I don't think that what we're seeing in threats about the economy or interest rates are lowering prices. They might just be decreasing slightly the buyer pool. We still had lots of offers. We still had great value. So we certainly haven't had an issue getting things done. But I just mentioned that. I, again, kind of hesitate to mention it because it's hard to say that one transaction is a trend, but I decided to put it in there. We are continuing to see how transactions increase in difficulty in diligence and quality of earnings requirements. And quality of earnings is a process that a buyer goes through to verify the financial numbers, an audit, if you will. But not just that, but legal work and work around the types of transactions and licensing. And it's the main reason for the growth in the Hinge team, that we have continued to add resources to our transaction team. Everybody gets at least 5 people on their team, even a single site, when they run a transaction with us, and those 5 people specialize in different areas because it's really hard now. It's really hard. We closed everything, we're getting it done, but sometimes it takes longer, and we're finding ways to make it successful, but it's definitely more work. We're continuing to see, so I've also said this, when we went into COVID, and this takes more explanation, but I'll say it quickly and you can ask me more if you'd like to know more. There are 2 ways to sell or buy a company. You can buy its assets or you can buy its stock. Historically, we did very few stock transactions because a stock transaction makes the buyer responsible legally for the liabilities of the company before the close, unless very complicated language is agreed to in legal agreements. During COVID, we saw at least half of our transactions switch to stock, and that has continued through 2022 for a couple of reasons. One reason is that in the majority of cases, you don't have to go through a relicensing process, which can be cumbersome, and those guys are so complicated now. They always have been, but even more so since COVID. They need people, and they're struggling to get their work done. So that's one reason. The other reason is the complications with grant monies that might go away if it changes hands from one company to another. So a stock transaction means the company continues with a new buyer. So we continue to see that. Plans for 2023. Here's what we hear from companies that are excited about where to go next year. So increased greenfield growth, meaning increased development and building of new sites. So you guys are going to see more competition from brand new schools in your market into new markets. So the industry historically has wrapped around the edges of the country, bigger focus on that middle part into some new markets. What this means for you is keep current with your branding and your facility upgrades. You need to stay on top, which makes it even more important for you to be financially healthy. So stay on top of keeping your building looking new and fresh, and don't disregard that as a selling point for parents. It doesn't matter how good your program is. If nobody feels good when they come in the door, they never come in the door. We love our friends at Better Beans Branding, who have a focus on the industry and do some beautiful work in renovating and keeping fresh assets in our industry. So look out for more greenfield growth. We think there'll be increased opportunities for acquisition. We're seeing a lot more sellers step up. Historically, the 2 reasons that people wanted to get out of the industry were regulation and staffing. So the staffing thing is not new. Again, it's just at a completely new place. And it remains the #1 reason that people want to exit the industry Also, they know that values are at an all-time high. And we're seeing a lot of people step up. We increased our transactions greatly since 2020. So we have increased from 3 to 6 transaction managers to keep up with that volume. You heard me say that more people are selling to capitalize on the state of business values, which are higher than ever. We're seeing more companies develop and launch leadership and training programs in their company. So along with that career path, they want people to feel like they're important and they're going somewhere there. It's another reason this profitability and growth in your company is critical. If you have great people, they aren't going to sit around and do the same thing forever. You have to continue to create opportunities for them. So developing leadership programs and training programs is really important right now. And then lastly, we have seen increased opportunity for our tech-based businesses. And this is largely what you guys heard me say earlier, that one of the things that has happened since COVID is people have gotten smarter about using technology to operate their business better and to conserve their people resources. So big opportunity. We've had several childcare transactions where our childcare owner also developed the technology and we sold that along with the childcare business. So we've seen a real surge there and some exciting stuff. So let me flip back through. I know we have about 15 minutes, a little bit less. Let me flip back through because I saw some questions. So would Thrive be a good workshop for directors or just owners? Directors are welcome. I suggest that you include directors if they're at a pretty savvy level financially, meaning they see your financial statements, they help work in making decisions about when to enroll, how many children to put in a class, what your tuition rates are, discounting, how you manage your other expenses, how you market your school. We're going to talk about real estate strategies. Most of those are better for owners, but there's some good content for directors. You might want them to have a pretty good working base in the financial life of your company. I think they will probably get more out of it that way. One thing I forgot to mention is when you guys send us your financial data, we will come to you, ask you to make an appointment the afternoon before our one-day financial content to have a one-on-one with one of our advisors. So you will sit down and have a 45-minute meeting for them to show you what they believe your best opportunities are. So we're going to load the data into the app. We're going to sit down with you one-on-one the day before. We're going to say, here are your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 best areas of opportunity. Pay attention to that, especially tomorrow. We're going to have a fun event that night. If you've ever come to any of our events, you know that we love nice events and fun, and we like to treat people well. So we'll have a fun cocktail hour to get to know other people that night. And then we'll do a full day of content the next day. So you're welcome to bring your directors. What are we seeing in terms of enrollment currently versus pre-COVID? What typical utilization are you seeing today? So again, where I see enrollments that are lower, I would have to say that the majority of people we're working with are back at pre-COVID enrollment levels. And they also have a waiting list. However, some, but it's not the majority, it's less than 50%, still have not fully hired and have wait lists without enrollment. So I would have to say pre-COVID, and again, 2019 was an amazing year. I believe enrollments were in the 80%, some people higher percent occupancy as compared to your license capacity. It's probably lower than that. This is a complete swag, but I would say maybe 70%, but it's where people can't get staff and they're choosing that, you know, or they don't want to stress teachers, but really good question. Is the top 50 list public? It isn't public. It's published in the magazine. However, it, I think, is contained in the article link that Marissa will send to you guys. If it's not, reach out. I'll figure out a way to get it to you. Mention being more intentional about discounts for children of staff, teachers, in order to keep and attract them and to emphasize the dollar value on their wage. How do you explain this to teachers who don't have children but want more dollars? Yeah, it's, that's always been a conversation we've had in the industry. There are people who will pay more to people that don't have children, or, they'll hire the lesser rate and explain the difference to their teachers. And there're just some that just do it and don't get a lot of pushback, but there are some that will discount the pay, but you got to prove it. You got to communicate that really well to people so that you don't immediately turn them off when they see the pay rate and they compare it with other pay rates. So do a good job communicating that. And I think you just have to, concretely lay it out. Here's what a person in your position makes with no children. Here's what you're going to make. Here's the benefit of your childcare discount. Here's what you're effectively making. And a lot of people like bringing their children. They're okay with making less money and paying half of it. I don't have a great answer for that, but I believe the majority of people pay everybody the same thing. And I don't hear a lot. I do hear that occasionally, but I don't hear overwhelmingly from people that it's a problem, but sometimes. For transactions, what multiples of EBITDA are we seeing? Has this changed since pre-COVID? Absolutely. So it's increased. Is probably in a state of an increase now. So you guys heard me say, I'm gonna see if I can tackle this quickly because it's a complicated question. And it's, I could easily talk about this for 30 minutes. Yes, it has changed since pre-COVID. And you heard me say that it's driven by the national transactions. Why does that make sense? Because the national groups trade at a certain multiple of EBITDA. EBITDA is cash flow, future cash flow. It stands for earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization. But forget that mumbo jumbo that accountants say to make us sound smarter. I'm one, so I can make fun of us. It's cash flow. So the investor wants to know how much cash flow they're going to make annually after they buy it. So the multiple is important. The more important question is what cash flow number are you basing that on? And it's not just a matter of taking your financial statements and saying, there's the number. It's massaging that number to make it a future number and knowing what that investor will have as expenses and not, and how they'll think about it. So there's an art to driving the EBITDA. So that's the first thing. Multiples have increased probably, they range from, let me just say, for us, they range from 5 to 14. And I know that's a huge range, but we saw some national transactions go from a previous level of 14 into the upper teens. There are 2 under contract right now that haven't closed yet. One is ours, one's another company's that are at record numbers. We've seen the transactions that were historically 7 and 8 multiples go to 10. The ones that used to be 6 to 7, so that the increase gets smaller as you go down. But it depends on the size of the EBITDA. Their breaking points at less than $1 million, $1 million, 2 million, 5 million, 10 million in EBITDA. And it would take more than we have here to explain that, but I'm certainly happy to, that's one of my favorite conversations too. So happy to always have that conversation with someone if they like. Would you increase tuition differently in an age group that does not have a wait list versus an age group that does? Yeah, sure. So I say to people a lot, if you have a wait list, increase your tuition rates. Until someone says, no, I can't afford that, you aren't charging enough. And again, I so get how I sound. I sound so insensitive to parents. but I have to read one more article that says college costs more than the childcare costs more than college. Well, good. It ought to. Then I'm going to scream. It ought to. Have we not determined that birth to 5 is the most critical educational part of our lives? Are we going to invest in helpless preschoolers? Are we going to invest in 100 18-year-olds sitting in I mean, it's important too. It is. But I just really think that we have to be careful and keep our tuition rates where they need to be. So if you have a wait list, go up. If you have a wait list in infants and toddlers, which if you don't, it would surprise me, but there are some markets, I've heard it, go up in infants and toddlers. You can go ahead and set a new tuition rate for people that haven't entered the system yet. It can be higher than your current rate. That's a good strategy, actually. You can call your current families legacy families. They love it. They're special. You can hold their rates at a lower increase for a year or two, and then you can set a new rate. Administratively, it's more work, but completely worth it and a really good strategy for increasing rates. What's standard hourly rate for teachers? All over the place. It depends on what market you're in, what their age group they're in, what quality of service, how long their experience is. That is such a wide range that you really have to drill down into your individual market. I'll just say it's increased everywhere. 45 to 50% salary to revenue ratio. Does that include all expenses included with payroll? No, that's just payroll. So the question is wages, taxes, insurance, withholdings, 401k, and ADB. No, that's just salaries. But it's all salaries. It's pay, it's vacation pay, it's holiday pay, it's all of the pay. And it's managers and it's teachers. And if you own a school and you are the owner manager and you're not paying yourself a market rate, which you should, but if you're not, add that in. But all those other things are separate. But I'm going to say it's got to be at 45 by the time you're 70% full. That's your target. And usually it's not that you're overspending. It's that your tuition rates are too low. That historically has been the industry's problem. And I've had people say, I'm managing down to the 15 minutes. Well, that's not your problem. The problem is the ratio is never going to be right if your tuition rates, occupancy, and discounts aren't right. Those three things work together to drive your revenue. If your revenue's not right, it doesn't matter. You know, you got to spend a certain amount, right, to even provide the service, and it's never going to be right if your revenue isn't right. So that's the most important place to start. What is the percent to shoot for our bottom line? Last question. I want you to be, and I'm just going to say this is really difficult right now because we're in this upside down world that we've got to get out of before our grant funds go away. I want you to put 15% on your bottom line at 70% full. Framework will do that calculation for you. So if you're 50% full, you're going to break even at best. So most schools will break even when they're 50% full. When they're 70% full, they can put 15% on the bottom line. From 70 to 100% full is your gravy, right? You've paid for your building, your teachers in place, you're maximizing occupancies, you're adding a child here or there, you got a little more supplies, a little more food, but that almost every dollar flows to the bottom line at that point. So historically, companies in that range could make 30, 35% bottom lines. I've seen some bigger, but they're very big outliers. It is really hard to go over that with the nature of our salaries. But we got to get back there. We've got to get back there by doing what we have to with our salaries and discounting. And it's a real important time in our industry. I hope that you guys have gotten some good information and at least know what questions to ask. Please consider the team at Hinge a resource. We want the best for you. We love the people that we work with. And frankly, if you guys don't do well, we can't do our work. So it helps us all when we all do well, we all do well. So take care and be well, friends. Look for good things and resources from the Hinge team. Tell us how you're doing. Reach out if you have needs that we're not addressing, and we will see you soon.